In today's equity index futures markets, let's take a look at the S&P 500 future today as it's realizing a strong move higher here to start the week. We're seeing the S&P 500 future up about 1%, right around the 32.45 level. And when you look at it from a price action standpoint, we are seeing the S&P 500 futures now going to post February highs. And now the September future is actually up on the year as well. So a renewed strength here to start the week. And I think when you look at some of the driving factors, first, you have to point to the vaccines that continue to show positive results in early stage testing. That trend started about a week ago, and the market continues to see other tests coming on now that show positive trends. So it does appear that, at least from a psychological standpoint, the market is taking that as a positive storyline. And I think rightly so, given the fact that if we can see a vaccine develop that shows the ability to fend off the virus, that certainly as we roll into 2021, that would lead to the belief that we'll see economic activity and economic structures opening and coming back online. Also, initiatives, stimulus initiatives coming out of both the EU and the US this week. Big storylines trending positively in the EU, getting into the Senate here in the United States, and I imagine there's going to be some fits and starts there this week as they work through it, but the market appears to believe that both these initiatives are going to get off the ground here in the coming weeks. Also, earnings this week are going to be a big driver, I think, for the S&P 500 futures and the other futures markets as well, and tech is taking the lead today, so we're seeing a very strong run out in the tech sector, and that's certainly helping to benefit certain areas within the futures markets. And when you look at some of the trends in place, I want to point out we are seeing the S&P futures now pushing up towards the high end of the range for the last several months. And again, the S&P 500 index now up on the year as well. So a positive result here, getting the markets back into positive territory. Now, when you look at the NASDAQ, that's been in positive territory for quite some time. And in today's price action, when you look at the futures markets, really leading the charge here today. As I mentioned, those tech names, NASDAQ futures up about 3% today. S&P 500 futures up about 1%. Dow futures up about 40 basis points, or just under 0.5%. And the Russell 2000 futures were actually down on the day. So they were down about 30 basis points. So big dispersion there. Tech taking the lead once again to start this week. We did see a little bit of a rotation trade out of tech in the last week and a half, but now we're seeing the momentum shifting back into these tech names as we move into the heart of earnings season.